The point from which I start is common, for there shall I return again. Come then, I will tell you, and do you for your part listen to my tale and pass it on, of those ways of seeking which alone can be thought of. There is the way that it is, and it cannot be. This is the path of trust, for truth attends it. Then there is the way that it is not, and that it must not be. This, as I show you, is an altogether misguided route. For you may not know what is not. There is no end to it, nor may you tell of it. For the same thing both can be thought and can be. It must be that what can be spoken and thought is, for it is therefore being. And there is no such thing as nothing. These are the guidelines I suggest for you. For I shall start my exposition to you first with this way of seeking, and then go on to the one in which mortals, knowing nothing, stray two-headed, for confusion in their breasts leads astray their thinking. On this way they journey deaf and blind, bewildered, indecisive herds, in whose thinking being and not being are the same, and yet not the same. For all of them the path turns back on itself. F6. By thinking gaze unshaken on things, which, though absent, are present, for thinking will not sever what is from clinging to what is, whether it is scattered at random everywhere throughout my composition or whether it comes together. F7. For never shall this be overcome, so that things that are not are. You should restrain your thinking from this way of seeking, and do not let habit compel you along this well-tried path to wield the aimless eye and noise-filled ear and tongue, but use reason to come to a decision on the contentious test I have announced. F8. Now only the one tale remains of the way that it is. On this way, there are very many signs indicating that what is unborn and imperishable, entire, alone of its kind, unshaken and complete. It was not once, nor will it be, since it is now altogether single and continuous. For what birth could you seek for it? How and from what did it grow? Neither will I allow you to say, or to think that it grew from what is not, for that it is not, cannot be spoken or thought. Also, what need could have impelled it to arise later or sooner, if it sprang from an origin in nothing? And so it should either entirely be, or not be at all. Nor ever will the power of trust allow that from what is, it becomes something other than itself. That is why justice has not freed it, relaxing the grip of her fetters, either to be born or to perish. No, she holds it fast. The decision on these matters depends on this: it is or it is not. And it has been decided, as was necessary, to leave the one way unthought and nameless as no real way, and that the other truly is a way and is truth-bearing. And how could what is be hereafter? How could it have been? If it came to be, it is not, and likewise, if it will be sometime in the future. Thus birth has been extinguished and perishing, made inconceivable, nor can it be divided, since all alike it is. Nor is there much of it here, and an inferior amount of it elsewhere, which would restrain it from cohering, but it is all full of what is. And so it is all coherent, for what is in contact with what is. Now changeless within the limits of great bonds, it is without beginning and without end, since birth and perishing have been driven far off, and true trust has cast them away. It stays in the same state and in the same place, lying by itself. And so it stays firmly as it is, for mighty necessity holds it in the bonds of a limit which restrains it all about, because it is not lawful for what is to be incomplete, for there is no lack in it. If there were, it would lack everything. The same thing both can be thought, and is that which enables thinking. For you will not find thinking apart from what is, on which it depends for its expression. For apart from what is, nothing else either is or will be, since what is what fate bound to be entire and changeless. Therefore, all those things which mortal men, trusting in their true reality, have proposed are no more than names, both birth and perishing, both being and non-being, change of place and alteration of bright coloring. Now, since there is a last limit, what is complete, from every side like the body of a well-rounded sphere, everywhere of equal intensity from the center. It must not be somewhat greater in one part, and somewhat smaller in another. For first, there is no such thing as what is not, to stop what is from joining up with itself. And second, it is impossible for what is to be more here and less there than what is, since it all inviolably is. For from every direction it is equal to itself, and meets with limits. Here I end what I have to tell you of trustworthy arguments, and thinking about reality. From this point onward, learn mortal beliefs, listening to words which, though composed, will be lies. For they proposed in their minds to name two forms, one of which should not be named. This is where they went wrong. They selected things oppositely configured and attributed to them features distinct from one another. To the one form, the bright fire of flame, which is gentle, very light, and in every way the same as itself, but not the same as the other. This too is self-consistent, in the opposite manner as impenetrable night, a dense and heavy body. I tell you this way of composing things, in all its plausibility, so that never shall any mortal man outstrip you in judgment. T6, Socrates speaking. But I was in danger of forgetting the other side to the controversy, Theodorus, the assertion that unique and unchanging is that for which as a whole there is the name to be, and all the other propositions which people like Melissus and Parmenides maintain, and which contradict the former theory of perpetual flux and change, that all is one, and that this oneness is fixed within itself, having no space in which to change or move. F9. You shall know the nature of the aether, and all the signs in the aether. You shall know the baneful deeds of the immaculate torch, that is, the brilliant sun, and you shall know the origins of all these things. You will come to understand the wanderings of the round-faced moon, and her nature. You will comprehend also the enclosing heaven, to know from where it came and how necessity bound it to hold the limits of the stars. F10. How earth and sun and moon, how the aether shared by all, the Milky Way, the uttermost heaven and the hot force of the stars all strove to come into existence. F11. Now since light and night have been given all names, and then predicated of this and that in accordance with their powers, everything is full of light and dark night at once, and of both equally, since neither of them contains what is not. F12. And so these things came into being thanks to belief, and are now, and in time to come will end when their nourishment is complete. Men proposed names for each thing to distinguish them. F13. The narrower ones became filled with unadulterated fire, and subsequent ones with night, and a portion of flame permeates them. Between these is the goddess who controls all things, since for all things she initiated vile intercourse and childbirth, sending female to join with male, and again conversely, male with female. F14. The very first of all the gods she devised was love. T8. Parmenides said that there are rings wound round each other, one made out of the rare and one out of the dense, and that there are other rings between the rare and the dense, which are a mixture of light and dark. He said that what surrounds them is solid like a wall, and that under it is a fiery ring, and also that what lies in the center of them is also solid, and that around it is another fiery ring. Of the mixed rings, the one that lies closest to the center is the principle and cause of movement and generation for them all. And he called it the divine helmswoman, and the key holder, justice and necessity. And he said that air is a secretion from the earth, which is emitted as vapor, as a result of the earth's most powerful felting. He said that the sun is an exhalation of fire, and so is the circle of the Milky Way, that the moon is a mixture of both air and fire, that the aether is the outermost region surrounding everything, that under it is located the fiery region we call heaven, that under this finally are located the regions that surround the earth. F15. An alien light wandering around the earth, shining in the night. F16. With gaze always fixed on the rays of the sun. T11. Parmenides and a few others, for instance, claim that women are warmer than men, and say that it is because of their warmth and the abundance of their blood that menstruation occurs. F18. Broadly speaking, there are two schools of thought concerning sense perception. Some attribute it to similarity, others to opposition. Parmenides, Empedocles, and Plato attribute it to similarity, Anaxagoras and Heraclitus to opposition. On the whole, Parmenides did not go into this with any clarity, but only said that there were two elements, and that knowledge is due to one of them being in excess of the other. For our thinking, he says, becomes different depending on whether or not the hot or cold is predominant. Moreover, he claims that the kind of thinking that is caused by the hot is better and more pure. However, even this kind of thinking needs a certain adaptation, he says. For thinking comes to men according to the condition which the blend of the much straying body is in at any moment. For it is the same thing that the constitution of the human body thinks, in each and every man. For the full is what is thought. For he treats perception and intellectual activity as the same, and that is why he says that remembering and forgetting are also due to the same factors, and occur as a result of the physical blend in us. But he fails to explain whether, if they are equally mixed, intellectual activity would or not occur, or what the general condition of the person would be like. And that he also attributes perception to opposition in itself is clear, when he says that because of its lack of fire a corpse does not perceive light and warmth and sound, but does perceive their opposites, such as cold and silence, and at the general level he says that everything that exists has knowledge to a certain extent.